Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Dr. Jenna Scare, better known as Doc Jen Fit on Instagram. And today we go all into not only talking about the body and pains and how you can start to release restrictions and open up mobility, but we go so much deeper into actually connecting all the dots so that we can really heal and feel better in the body. So stay tuned and join in Ever Forward Radio.
3, 2, 1.
Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's so good to have you on here. I love going back I always call it going back to my roots when I'm talking fitness, nutrition, mobility, strength training. I mean, that was my origin. That got me interested in this whole fitness thing, nutrition thing, wellness thing. But I kind of found out, and I think most people would agree, I'm curious if you do too, fitness is a gateway drug to just how optimum this one vessel can be. Would you agree? And what's been your kind of gateway drug, if you will? What was it fitness for you? And like, how did it get you to where you are now?
Yeah. For me, it was sports. Like my parents required that we were in a sport all growing up. Required.
That's a hefty word.
It was. Yeah. But at the same time, I'm so grateful. And they were like, you can try anything. So I did. Like everything. I tried soccer, sat on sidelines and cried because I didn't want to play with the boys. Softball, I was horrible, but I had fun. Yeah. Dance, I found the girls were a little mean, so I couldn't do it. And I stumbled upon gymnastics and I was like, this is it. And I fell in love. And from there, even after I retired when I was 16, there was something about that kind of, especially like gymnastics, that kind of body control, that kind of movement that just sucked me in. And I went down and I remember taking a Pilates class and I thought, this reminds me of conditioning and gymnastics, which conditioning I later found out is like running and actual cardio stuff. Conditioning and gymnastics is like pull-ups, leg lifts, like hollow body holds.
Somebody's not right here.
I was like, what? We're running for conditioning? That is not what we did in gymnastics. So it reminded me a lot of that. And I thought, this is really cool. So I started teaching actually for Pilates and coaching gymnastics and falling in love with movement. I fell in love with calisthenics, which is how my Instagram started to grow, by the way. Was calisthenics.
Right. Yeah.
And then acro yoga. And just like, there's this obsessiveness with how else can I move my body? What else could I do? And discovering like, oh, I could do handstands, but now I can do handstands on someone's hands. Like what?
I can do handstands.
Yeah. And then learning that whole aspect. And then I was surrounded by this incredible community as well, who continue to push me into, but you can, like, let's just try this. Let's try that. Yeah. And I remember always going into acro yoga, being very tentative. Like, I'm going through grad school. I'm going to be a physical therapist. I don't need to be injured. I'm not trying to do shows. I'm not trying to, impress anyone. So I just want to play and keep it very fun. But it was so, I just talked about this on a post the other day too. It's just so interesting when you have those people around you who push your boundaries in a good way, right? And hold space for you to be able to even do that. And that is what has always been so beautiful and continues to draw me into these kinds of things because, I have these friends that are just like, let's try this crazy skill. And I'm like, you must have me mistaken for someone else because I can't do that.
Not up in here. Not up in here. Yeah.
But then, lo and behold, they break it down. They say, okay, I understand. Like, you're scared. Cool. Like, let's just see what happens if we do this step. Let's see what happens if we do that step. And then all of a sudden we do it. And I'm like, oh my God, they just blew my mind. I didn't think that was possible. And when
I'm doing it.
Yeah, like literally. Yeah. And when you surround yourself around, and that's the gateway drug for me, is like, what is possible within my body? And how much am I still holding myself back? How much am I scared and still trying to be in control of things?
Yeah.
And how can I continue to see what just happens if I just take a step, if I just surround myself with different people, if I just, what would happen? And this continued exploration of what's possible in the body, it's there's just no words for how incredible it feels.
I was telling you before my story of injury and, my catalyst to what I was doing here. And I mean, that could be written on my tombstone. I think, I mean, you nailed it right there. And you don't need to go through an injury to be so grateful for the body. You don't need to go through something traumatic to keep learning what is possible. But there's so much more possible to this body.
So much.
And I'm learning. So, I mean, someone like yourself and myself who have devoted our professional life and so much of our personal interest into studying it, exploring it, teaching it, coaching it. Hell, every day I figure something new out if I'm paying attention enough to the steps. What are some things that really blew your mind in terms of you see just Z at the end of the road, but then once you broke it down, someone's like, here's A, here's B, here's C. For me, it was yoga, for example. I think most people, their adversity to yoga or acro yoga or anything is, I can never do that.
Right.
Well, you're looking at the end result.
Right.
You're not looking at the preparatory work. You're not looking at like all the little steps leading up to that. Was it acro yoga for you, or what was it that was just really, wow, I can't believe I got here?
I mean, it's like my entire movement journey. Gymnastics continue to always blow my mind that way. And coaches would always remind you, because there comes a year almost every year where it was like, okay, now I have to go to the next level, and the next level, there's this skill and this skill. And it just, you can get down the loophole of like, this gets really scary. I'm now throwing myself off bars and then catching it again. There's just skills that continue to increase. And the coaches were really, my coaches in particular, were really incredible with like, look at how amazingly abnormal you are. Like you putting yourself in these positions, in these skills, and this strength within the body that normal humans don't do. And normal people can't do. And you are proving that it's possible over and over and over again. And continuing to like remind us of that was really, really incredible, to be like, oh, I can. Oh, it's like, it's empowering. Like, oh yeah, I did accomplish that. Like, oh yeah, I have gotten this skill. Yeah. And there was like this one poem I remember even through gymnastics. It's like patience is a virtue, and it goes through all this stuff that a gymnast goes through. And it's like, even through rips, even through, injury and tears and coaches yelling, like you continue to persevere and look at what you can accomplish at the end of the day. And it was something that stuck. I got it like when I was a young gymnast, and I memorized that thing and I carried it with me to every competition, because it became like my thing to hold on to, of like, yes, I can. Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
For sure. Yeah.
And it was so incredible. And then what blew my mind even more, because yes, I taught Pilates and, coach gymnastics and all of these other things. But what blew my mind even more is that when I got into physical therapy school, it wasn't until I was working with patients of cerebral palsy or amputees that really impressed me. Because I remember this one guy, he will stick with me forever. He was like about 35 and he was in a wheelchair with cerebral palsy. So it was pretty severe, but he lived by himself.
Really?
And watching him get himself out of his chair, put on like his shoes and button up his shirt, it looks painful for one, because he's got contractures all over his body, and it looks hard, and you just want to be like, oh, I can do it. But he's like, no, I got this. I'm doing it. Yeah. And then watching him pull himself back up into his wheelchair, and he can't speak either because of the contractures around his face, and he uses his phone, and he does everything on his own. And here's someone who, it might take 20 minutes to put on his shoes, but he's going to do it. And he doesn't need a bed for him. He just is on the floor, and he makes his bed every day, and he figured out how to cook for himself and how to get food and how to get rides and how to get himself around. And when he got too big to lift himself back into his wheelchair, he started swimming with his physical therapist so that he can lose weight. Amazing. So that's what I saw. I saw, here's someone who doesn't say, here's what I have and what I can't do. I saw someone who said, here's what I got to have. Here's what life handed me. And here's what I can do.
I wish you were here for the last interview. Literally that wanted to be in the whole premise of what we talked about. It was, he also went through a serious injury. He played high school football, and had this injury. Basically, his helmet. Pretty sure he said the doctor's exact words. Shout out Casey if you're watching this. It was your helmet served as a guillotine to your neck. You never want to hear that from your doctor, right?
Yeah.
And so for months and months and months, he was in this big brace. And the whole premise of what it was, he couldn't do anything, couldn't play sports ever again.
Yep.
Daily living was a struggle. I mean, you're mounted to this thing for it was like 5-6 months. And the whole thing that just kept coming up was, this happened for me, not to me. Happened for me, not to me. I think in your world and how you help people the most, that's got to be something that you hear as kind of an adversity or friction to getting started on this stuff is, I can't do this movement because I can't do that workout because I stubbed my toe 6 months ago and I still I have pain or a prior injury.
Yeah.
How, in what you do, how do you help people get past that?
Yeah. Well, especially with pain. Pain is such a limiter in people's minds. Because it's a fear point. If I continue to do something, either it's going to make the pain worse or this pain is never going to go away, so I can never do this again. And what's most sad to me is a lot of these patients come because their doctors have told them, well, you probably shouldn't ride your bike anymore. Well, you probably won't be running
somebody
anymore.
told them what they can't do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And because of the fear of having this pain again or making this pain worse, it holds people back. And so it's talking to people in a new way about their pain and getting them to acknowledge the pain and not fear the pain. And that's what's so important. Like, I think we get to realize how beautiful having pain in the body is, because if we don't have the signal of pain, then that's when something catastrophic can happen. If I don't know that even, we feel pain referred from organs in the body. And if I don't have that pain telling me that something is wrong, I don't know then to go maybe see a therapist who says, oh, this is looking a little bit of red flags. Maybe you should go back to the doctor. You get that CT scan and you see it's something deeper. Yeah. And you actually get to be helped. That's pain. Pain helps you. Pain is your friend, and it's your thing to be able to say, hey, there's something that's being neglected, and I'm just trying to wave my hand so that you start to bring awareness back to something.
Hello.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, I got to see that huge because that's what my grandma went through. We didn't know at the time, but she had stage 4 lung cancer, and it was already in her bone. And so she had back pain, severe back pain over and over. And the doctor just go to PT, go to PT, go to PT. And PT would obviously put her back because he's like, she's not getting better. And what frustrated me, what I saw, I wasn't even a therapist yet, but what frustrated me, I'm like, if she's not getting better, there's something deeper happening. And it took more doctors for them to finally do a CT scan and see that it was lung cancer. Jeez. And that it had spread to the bone. That's why it was so massively in pain. And I think when we are able to see that, like, pain is of course, that scenario is a little bit scary, right? But it's also, that allowed us to see what it was. That allowed us to see the signal, to have that awareness and that level of how can I look a little bit deeper? How can I find the root cause? And we also get to acknowledge that pain is that symptom. It isn't the cause. It is just the way that your body is talking to you. And the more that we continue to learn, especially as physical therapists, we learn that there's not one structural issue that we can say for sure causes pain. I cannot tell you that your hips being out of alignment is because of your back pain. I cannot tell you that scoliosis is because of you have back pain because of your scoliosis. Right. I sit here with scoliosis and don't have back pain. So, and not to say that someone who does have scoliosis won't have back pain, but we just know that we've had so many studies done, and no matter what the image is, we can't always say that determines a pain. Yeah. No matter what the structure is, we can't always determine that's a pain.
Correlation, not causation.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's why we have to say, well, what else could be causing pain? And if I do a breath session with someone and automatically they're crying because their pain went away, that's not structural. Wow. That's not anything that I did. That's something that happened in their body. That was a switch in their body. Yeah. Exactly. So that's why we have to look at the body as a whole, life as a whole, what's happening head to toe. Like, we are not a little symptom. We are not a pain point. We're a person. And the more that we start to dive into that, the more that we're going to start to open up what's possible.
We are the sum of our parts.
Mm-hmm.
We are the sum of our parts in our human body. We are the sum of parts of our thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
the sum of our parts of our community, our friends, our family. It's not just one singular event or thing or component. It's how those are all composed together.
100%.
And are you in symphony or are you a hot mess? Really? Or is it just noise all the time?
Yeah.
One of the things I say all the time is really pay attention to the whispers your body gives you before it turns into a scream.
Mm.
And in this world of taking care of yourself, human optimization, how I kind of say, living a life ever forward is like pain is this is a hint. Something you feel out of whack, that's a hint.
Mm-hmm.
We get these whispers all the time. Our body gives us these signals and we just, okay, no, let's just throw a Band-Aid on it or let me ignore it. And then eventually it's just going to scream at you. And then you got injury, and then you got re-injury, inflammation, chronic disease, all these things that really, I'm not saying 100%, but vast majority, look, if you just actually paid attention and took pause, take a breath, the inventory you could get, the feedback, the diagnostics you could get are really endless.
Mm-hmm.
And breath work, that's a big kind of focus of your work, right? So what is it about breath that is so unique and special, and how do you kind of incorporate that?
Especially when we're dealing with pain, the number one thing that I notice a lot that happens is, especially living in Southern California and having clients in Southern California, there's no time for pain. I am doing so many other things, especially if you're, say you're a mom, like I'm taking care of the kids, I'm working, I'm taking care of my husband, and I'm cooking, and I'm doing this, and I'm doing that. And
we
I'm
need a lot of it
cleaning
taken care of. We're big babies. I'll throw it out there. My wife's amazing. I wouldn't be alive. We're useless.
And I just resonate with women a little bit more, I think, with this. But, there is just humans. There's always this level of like, what are you doing? What are you doing next? What else is happening? And there's this constant hover of stress, right? And then pain comes along. To say the least, yeah. Exactly. And pain comes along and you're like, well, what am I supposed to do with this? I don't have time. I don't have time to go see someone. I don't have time to do my exercise. I don't have time to do an hour of mobility. And it becomes an extra stressor on top of everything else you already have.
So true. Yeah.
And so my way of really getting people to tap back into even just acknowledging the pain is first by getting them to turn on their off switch. We have to turn on that parasympathetic off switch in order to actually feel. And the number one thing that I'm dealing with as well when people come in is like, if I'm trying to even just passively move them through their body and feel ranges in their body, most people, I'm trying to get to relax. And they're like, I am. And I'm like, but if I let go of your arm right now, it would stay.
You're like, your body's telling me no.
Exactly.
It's like, my body is telling me.
But But people aren't even aware of that.
Yeah.
Like there's no awareness. Like I want to help you. And so there's that extra like, no, here you go. Here, I'm helping, I'm doing, which is still a state of constant doing. Or you just a lack of awareness that you're holding this tension within the body all the time. And you can even do it like, say you're sitting in your car driving right now. Like, are your shoulders kind of rolling up? Is anything?
That one's huge for me. I always catch myself. I don't drive a whole lot. Sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
That is actually one of the biggest cues I have found. I completely have stopped driving 10 and 2 because it's just, I'm like white knuckling and drive like this. And also, what do I know? I'm not in a natural position for my shoulders, for my chest. So I bring it down, get into a neutral shoulder position. Like I'm much more, literally, physically, I'm more relaxed. And then everything else becomes more relaxed.
Exactly.
I'm not holding my breath. I'm not, it's
tensing up. Yeah, exactly.
Screw the 10 and 2. Driver's ed, screw you. All right. It's
come on down.
4 and 7. I don't do math good. There we go. We'll go with that. But,
or even just like watching Netflix, like notice if your neck is like tensing, like you're in a hunch position, relax, but notice if your neck is actually tense. Like these are things that we don't even think about how we hold tension throughout the day when we're supposed to be relaxed, but we're not.
How many times, just pay attention to how many times you exhale. Like just...
Yeah.
If you're constantly just, that's another cue. If you're hunched over, I mean, you can't fully exhale. You can't physiologically get into a relaxed position.
Exactly.
People, pay attention. All right, pay attention.
Or how much is your mouth hanging open, which we can talk
Mouth
into
breathers.
as well. Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Walk us through that.
Yeah. So ultimately, like getting into, so parasympathetic, if we think of that rest, relax, digest state. So we mostly know like there's a resting state that's automatic and there's a stressful state that's sympathetic. That's usually what people know, right? The fight, flight, or the rest, relax. Well, we don't get into the rest, relax unless we turn it on. Mm-hmm. So it is our off switch and we have to manually turn it on. So you actually have to switch the way of what you're controlling within your body. And one of the ways that I like to talk about that is if we look at a typical breath cycle, we can look at an inhalation state and we can look at an exhalation state. Inhalation state is actually more of your sympathetic. That is someone scared you and you go, and you take a breath in and you hold it. Everything gets really tight.
Because your
body,
every muscle, everything needs that extra oxygen, that extra contraction because it thinks it needs to respond to something.
Exactly. It's going into protection mode.
Yeah.
And what happens in protection mode? Everything gets really stiff and tight. Now imagine only focusing on an exhale. And that's what most people do, especially if we go and take a deep breath and relax. Mm-hmm. Main thing that people do, take an inhale and then there's like no really paying attention to the exhale. Yeah. It's all the inhale. It's the shoulders rising up to the ears. And we get this big chest elevation where it's like, well, no, that's not actually going to do us as much benefit as if we actually focus on the exhale. So the exhalation state is that parasympathetic. That is going to get a massage and you're like, nice and relaxed.
Yeah.
So if we actually, it's like the simplest thing. If I just put a longer exhale or hold after my exhale, shorter than my inhalation state. So 4-second inhale, 8-second exhale. If I just focused on that, I'm automatically starting to turn on.
Okay.
My parasympathetic.
All right, so keys are in the ignition. We're cranking it over.
Yeah.
All right. How do we keep the engine rolling? What are the next steps?
So I also then draw people back into what is the rib cage doing? Because usually when we're talking about breath, we're talking about hand on the chest, hand on the belly. Well, what happens with that is that I've now had so many clients come in and be like, I'm doing great belly breathing. And all they're doing is forcing the belly in and out. And I'm like, oh, we're actually missing the whole point here. Yeah. The breath should be coming from this 360 pattern. So it's not just forward and back, but it's actually side to side. And usually the side to side is what's missing or what's hardest to achieve in the breath. And so I like either wrapping a towel, a TheraBand, or just using your hands on that low rib cage and giving it a little bit of a squeeze.
All right, walk me through this. I'm going to do it. Let's get interactive. All right.
So feel the low rib cage.
All right.
And give it just a little bit of a squeeze. Because when we squeeze it as well, we give it a little feedback to the body. And then I want this like a 4-second inhale. So breathe into your hands to the side. So try to push your hands out without raising your shoulders and tensing your neck.
This is difficult. All right, here we go.
Yeah. There you go. That's better. And then a nice slow exhale and the hands will gradually come slowly back together. So the belly relaxes. And it'll definitely push out, but it doesn't need to be the driver of it.
I've never thought breathing
laterally. Yeah, to the side.
Kind of just blew my mind, Jen.
Yeah. And what's hard in this position too is that people do get a lot of tension up into the neck. And so I say, okay, then grab a towel and wrap it around this way so that the arms can be a little bit more relaxed and it's not like so tense in the shoulders. Exactly. Okay. And it's almost like if we squeeze somewhere, then our body knows where to respond and bounce into. So it's just a response mechanism into the body. If I squeeze here, then I know to push into there. So it's like me working on someone manually. I'll put my hands on the rib cage and they know where to kind of put pressure into. But you'll notice if you feel with your rib cage, sometimes you'll notice like, oh, it expands on the left, but doesn't expand on the right. Or there'll be an opposite pattern kind of happening in the body. And then you know, okay, I get to work on that a little bit.
Yeah.
Or one of the other things I love to do is being able to, like, everyone should be able to take their fingers and wrap it underneath the rib cage and kind of like, does that scare you?
What? Like, did you get this from a Saw movie or something? What do you mean? I think I've seen that with the like rib cage.
Yeah, we're not tearing anything apart here.
This is taking me back to my exercise phys lab days. I'm like, all right, 5th intercostal space.
Yeah, right.
Try not to like grab the girl's boob. I'm just like, all right, like, she's like, just do it. Literally just got a flashback to that exact. I was struggling to find like the last intercostal space where EKG leads. And I kind of knew where I needed to go. And this girl was, I can't remember your name, VCU undergrad, class of 13, exercise science for listening. She's like, just do it. So I was like,
oh my God, that's so funny.
got it. Well, which is another wild thing. The body is so amazing. The body, the mind. Just by, you were about to walk us through that exercise. And I went to do that, and immediately my brain was like, I've been here before. I've done this before. And I that was so wild. That was wild. The brain, the body cool, remembers everything. Yeah.
Exactly. How the body can like pull you back into different memories, especially tactile ones.
I was just like freaking out, thinking you were about to try to rip my rib cage out. And then now I'm transported back to Exercise Biz Lab. Okay. We got a guest on the show now. Nella, I guess, wants to, be the third guest. Should we get her a headset?
That would be so cute. You should.
If you're watching the video, you got a special surprise. My dog Nella just decided to show off her new harness.
So cute.
Yeah, she's killing the game right now. But let's get back to that. What is that? So kind of like digging into the rib. What is that process? What are you going to say?
And we don't have to go like super aggressive. We're not like breaking anything up, but we're stimulating. Where what's cool as well, if you're getting under here, this is where our diaphragm rests, first of all. Right. So we're getting some mobilization into the diaphragm.
So walk me through this again.
So like literally taking your fingers, and can you get underneath the rib cage?
I think so. Also, I'm a little scared, to be honest. I'm like, how far do I go? Is it the right spot?
If you
Nella's over here for support. Okay. She's like, I got you, Dad.
Right. Kind of wrapping those fingers and coming underneath. If it's a little difficult or a little painful, might be something to explore.
Just uncomfortable. Yeah. New. It's new.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
Oh, look at this. So cute.
She's like, Dad, don't do it. I got you. Just like
she's comforting in case there's any pain.
Okay. So I think I'm in there.
Okay, relax your chest. There you go. There we go. Yep. There you go. And kind of feel around. So go around like the bottom a little bit, go toward the top, and you'll notice like there might be areas that feel a little bit more intense than others. So what we're also doing, it's almost like a little mobilization for that rib cage and for the diaphragm. But this is a cool place where like the nerves and the lymphatic tissue will cross. And so if we kind of rub our fingers underneath there, we actually get a little, stimulation to that area. And when we stimulate in a calm way using slow breath, the nervous tissue with the lymphatic tissue, we get fluids to move better and we get our body to relax. So it's a cool technique to also use to get you into your body to kind of help you chill out. And fluids movement is crucial because this is how we get fascia to slide and glide and mobility to actually increase. So mobility is not going to increase and go anywhere, and it's going to be kind of pointless in the body if you don't know how to relax in the body. If you don't know how to get into that parasympathetic, if you don't know how to get fluids moving. So it's why I talk about like so much, one, we need more adequate sleep. Obviously, we need water in our bodies. I love dry brushing. I'm a huge proponent of
That's
including
new
that.
To me. I've been just seeing it more, still learning about it. Yeah. What is that? Can you walk us through your experience?
It's just helping to kind of get that lymphatic fluid to move.
Okay.
So again, anything that, and it's going to be more of like that superficial driver, right? Because it's not deep into, it's not like a massage. It's literally, I can use my arm or my hand and just kind of like pull upward toward my heart on my arm, going from my lower forearm to my heart. And that already is kind of like fluids moving, getting pressure to move toward the heart, getting fluids to move toward the heart. So they kind of get that fluid pumping. And even if I were to stand and it's kind of like a thing to do in the morning or to do as a warm up. Honestly, you can do it standing on your toes and then bouncing on your heels and letting your body relax. People don't like to do it because things will jiggle. It's okay. Let it jiggle. But when we do that too, we stimulate the lymphatic system, getting those fluids to move and kind of getting that fascia to relax so that then we can activate the muscles we want to in a workout, or we can get into that new range of motion and mobility. People, I hear it all the time, like I foam roll all the time, or I stretch and I never can touch my toes, or I can't do that. I'm like, what's happening in your system?
Not so much. No. Yes, but no. Like that's cute, but it's wrong.
We're not wrong, but like we're like you're holding tension for some
Right,
reason.
yeah.
And your body's saying, I need to protect you. So why? Why does it feel the need to protect you? Why is it feeling so tense and tight? How can we start to get it to chill a little bit more so we can open up into it?
You shared the journey from gymnastics and kind of like getting to where you are now, but I'm going to make an assumption here. Like, what is the deeper reasoning behind that? In my experience personally, we find the things that pull us into that world because of I had something happen to me or I had this great experience. And for most physical therapists, I realize as well, or people that get into this profession, health, fitness, nutrition, all these things, it's I had a great big transformation myself, or I worked with this incredible physical therapist. Did you have either of those? What was like your kind of defining moment on this?
Yeah, you want to know what's so funny? I actually never went to physical therapy as a gymnast.
Really?
Yeah, I should have.
Wow.
Many times.
Okay.
It was just not a thing that was talked about as much when I was growing up. Like nowadays, young athletes are going and seeing physical therapists or athletic trainers very regularly.
Like preventively almost, yeah.
Yeah. And especially if you had your sport in a school, in a high school, it was normal to have athletic trainers around.
Right.
But being at a private gymnastics facility, we didn't have any of that around. So I actually never went. And it was just this constant exploration of, but why? But why? So I would tape an ankle for a gymnast and be like, but why? Why am I doing this? What more could I be doing? I would modify exercises in Pilates to make sure someone doesn't have wrist pain or back pain or whatever pains they were dealing with currently. And I could do that brilliantly, but I'd be like, but why are they in that pain anyways?
Yeah.
And is there something that I could be doing that could help them along that journey? And it was this constant, like, I want to understand it more. I want to know it more. I never had, luckily, knock on wood, huge injuries from gymnastics or calisthenics or acro or anything.
Amazing.
I had sprained ankles all the time, pulled hip flexors, fractured my thumb. I had all these little things. I wore wrist guards every day, taped my ankle every day. But
nothing took you out of commission.
No.
Really? Okay. Wow. Amazing.
Very, very fortunate as a gymnast.
Knock on wood, right?
Yeah. I mean, maybe why I quit at 16 because something would have happened.
Quit while you were ahead.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, so I never had this physical therapist that really blew my mind. And it was really when I was working with these, and I taught Pilates and I kind of talked about that. So going into physical therapy school, I thought, I'm going to do Pilates rehab and maybe I'll do women's health. And since that sounds more like in line with what Pilates would be doing and stuff like that. But then I just realized, people are not living into their potential at all. And what else could I be doing? And how could I help the everyday person? Like it frustrated me that I'd be like, have someone come into the clinic and they'd be like, I get pain after running 5 miles. And I'm like, oh, so sad. Other people can't do anything.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
And so I'm like, why are we letting these little things hold us back? And how could we continue to raise the bar of awareness within our own body so we're not relying on someone else? And I never wanted to be the therapist that people were relying on. I didn't understand working in a clinic and having these clinicians that would have clients for years. And I'm like, but why? Why are you making them reliant on you? We shouldn't have people reliant on us. Like, yes, if someone wants to come in month to month just to get checked, just to be like, hey, I'm super active and I just want to make sure like what's happening.
A little maintenance here and there.
Yeah. But ultimately, I want to send you on your way. I want you to feel empowered. I want you to understand your body. And if you need me, cool, I'm here to help guide you. But at the end of the day, like you don't need me. And if you're feeling like you have to have me, then I'm not doing my job for you. And I always wanted people to get that. And it really frustrated me when I would just see ultrasounds and electrical stim and the same 2 exercises for every single client. And I'm like, but why? You're so smart and you can help a client so much. Like, why are you only doing these things? And so I was in the clinic for 1.5 years. And then I couldn't take it. And I left and started doing my own thing.
Pretty quick stint.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is another big interest of everyone here on the show and my natural progression over the years as well from things happened to me, studied them more, turned it into a profession, and then I left.
Yeah.
What was that progression like? What was it like going from clinical to your own thing? Walk us through a little bit of the entrepreneurial journey, if you will.
Yeah. It was scary. I even in grad school, I would say business, that's over my head. Like I'll always be working for someone else. I never
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Never anticipated, never had this like entrepreneurial drive to like, which is funny. I say that because Pilates is all getting your own clients and I worked my way up in even gymnastics coaching and, whatever. But I just didn't realize that was my drive.
Okay.
And I always saw like just these things that were happening within the clinic that could be so much better and that could really help clients. And I would always, and at the time I was like in grad school is when my social media even started to begin. And then once I graduated and I started educating, that's when it really took off. And the fact that they weren't utilizing me at all in the clinic, I was like, you guys realize what could be happening right
Here's
now.
a tool to help more people more quickly.
To get awareness into your facility, to get more people into your facility. People were coming in to see me who were paying cash to come into the clinic. And I'm like, you're just not taking advantage of anything. And one day it finally hit me. Social media was starting to grow and that was amazing. And then I was starting to get my own clients on the side. I had gone into a CrossFit and been like, hey, do you guys have a physical therapist? Like, I'm happy to just come and be your physical therapist.
Just lead with value. Here, let me help. Yeah.
And so I would treat all the coaches there. And then I started getting clients there. And so 2 days a week, when I would get off early at my clinical job, I would go and I would treat clients. So I was already starting to kind of build my own thing on the side.
Hustling.
I was. I was just testing it out because I was like, how could I do this? I had met a chiropractor in my last year of physical therapy school who was working on patients what I saw as a physical therapist. And I'm like, how are you doing this? That was like not a chiropractic thing that I am used to seeing. That was like a full hour session with body work and movement and breath and all this. I was like, what, how are you doing this? Explain
yourself.
And so she really like helped open my mind. I remember I sat in class and in our quote unquote business class in school, which is not a business class. And I was like, well, this chiropractor is working on her own and seeing her own clients and just going to their home. And now that we have direct access as physical therapists, meaning that a patient doesn't have to go get a script from an MD.
They don't need a referral,
Yeah, to come see us.
Was that when it became DPT, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, well, can't we do this? And she was like, no, that can never happen. And I was like, you just told a group of 60-something people that that's not possible. That's crazy. And so that's when I was like, I got a table in my last year and I went to the CrossFit and talked to them and saw.
Jen was like, watch me.
Yeah. I was just like, let me see. And then that's when I got a job with shooting for a magazine. And it happened to be on a weekend. But I was like, what if this was during the week? Like, what else am I passing on because of my job during the week that I could have the opportunity to dive into and explore? And if now is my opportunity, because social media, cool. Why not? Why am I holding myself back? So I remember after that shoot, I literally text my bosses and I was like, we need to talk on Monday. And one text back immediately, please don't leave. He kind of knew.
Wow.
And on Monday we talked and I said, I'm giving my week's notice because I've got a lot to figure out.
1 week.
Yes.
Wow. I thought I had it all mapped out in my head. I gave myself a 90-day goal. I gave my company heads up and then I formally gave a 30-day notice.
Oh, you're so nice.
Damn.
I know. I was a little.
You entrepreneur harder than me, Jen.
I was just like, listen, I got a lot to figure out in terms of rules and regulations. I've got clients already waiting for me.
I got a lot to figure out. I need a week. Who says that? Nobody says that. I'm over here like 90 days. And she's like, I need a week. I got a lot to figure out. No.
This is what happened, Chase. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you. I don't know where it was going to work. I didn't know what I was. And then it just all fell into place. My girlfriend was like, oh, I'm training at a new spot and they need a therapist. And there you go.
When you make yourself available to what could be, what could be becomes what is.
It's so crazy.
Yeah. That actually sounds pretty profound. I might like
write
trademark
that down.
That's actually pretty good. I had to learn that from somebody. There's no way I just made that up. That's
you
pretty
never
good.
know. Never know.
I give all credit to Nella here. She's my muse. So you you found your path, you found your calling, and it's all been out of service. And that's exactly, which is why I love having people on like this. And it's almost like an affirmation that it was very similar to my journey. And like, yes, I'm not alone. And yes, like this is the right thing. And, you know, yes, I'm, you know, on the right path kind of thing. What's next for you? Where's the path going? How are you making your own path from here? Because it's been what, a couple of years of social media, entrepreneur stuff. Stuff, it's the best word to describe work these days, I guess. But what's next for you? What are you building? Where do you want your life? Where do you want the business? Where do you want human potential to go?
You know, I just continuing to want to push people into constant exploration, knowing that it's an ever-going journey. And if I gave you a day-to-day, week by week, here's what to do for this injury, would you even follow it all the way through? For myself, I don't think I would. I think I'd be super like gung-ho in the first week and then probably fall off. And
then you would remember, oh, I'm a human.
Yeah, exactly. So my hope for people is this continued exploration on what's possible, what am I neglecting, and what can I bring more awareness to? And that's what my programs do. I give you the tools to continue exploring. I give you the tools to continue learning, to continue diving in so that, you know, even if you go see a physical therapist, you already have this awareness within the body.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're just going to help guide you a little bit more precisely. And that's my hope for people to continue to awaken to continue to connect the dots of what is happening around you is also what's happening within you.
Yeah.
And so movement isn't everything. It's not just core strength. It's not just mobility, but it's what is happening in your life in totality. And are you trusting yourself as a whole? Are you trusting, I mean, how can you listen to yourself if you're not trusting yourself?
Well, please say that again. Tell them they need that.
How can you listen to yourself if you're not trusting yourself? And I realized I wasn't trusting myself. I could obsessive with movement, obsessive with understanding and learning. But when I got shingles in my body,
oh no,
you know, I realized, I literally said to the therapist, so I was seeing a mental therapist at the time. And I said, I feel like there's a little girl inside me that's screaming to be heard and no one's hearing her. And that is like, it breaks my heart to say it every single time because I think back to how I was feeling at that time. And it just goes like, and I know, like I was having all these emotions, all these feelings that I was not trusting. Like, this must be wrong. This can't be right. I was being told that it was wrong. I was being told I'm strong. You're good. You're this, you're that, or that's not true. This isn't right. And so I lost sight of how to listen and how to trust that listening until I broke free from where I was at. And it was this whole new level of freedom in my body of like, this feels so different. Mobility feels different. Strength feels different. Everything feels different when I'm actually now connected on a way deeper level. Like, I get to be heard. I get to trust myself, and that gets to be okay. Any emotions that I have, whether I'm angry, whether I'm sad, whether I'm happy and joyful, like all of those are real and they get to be expressed. And that permission to be able to do that is permission into the physical as well.
Wow. Would you be willing, can I go a little deeper there?
Yeah.
I've been in LA 2 years now. I get to talk about feelings. It's totally,
totally yes, you do.
For me personally, like the physical work is essential. Taking care of the body, fitness, nutrition, movement, all these things. It wasn't fully, I'll say, for me to tap into my personal, full, complete sense of wellness, just truly feeling my best and knowing that each day I could feel better was when I made that emotional, mental connection as well to the body. I mean, you literally just said that there was a little girl screaming inside of you. No one was listening. No one was listening. I would beg to say, by the question, that there literally has been a little Jen at one point in your life screaming, knowing, paying attention to her, whether that was you, family, whatever. But how did you then have that realization? And then where did you go after that? How did you kind of tap into that emotional kind of sensation so that your physical sensation could prosper?
So,
without breaking any HIPAA laws, you know, from your therapist or anything.
No, you're good. So I was doing like a lot of I was going into emotional intelligence training. I was going into personal development. And so there continued to be these new levels of awareness that I was hitting. And it was all incredible. Like I remember even talking to one of my coaches during one of the programs, and she could sense that I needed to cry. And she said, "It is okay to cry."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Wait, are you sure?
Yeah.
Is that okay?"
Why do we need permission to cry, right? Yeah.
And in the space and the relationship that I was in at the time, I couldn't be talked to if I was crying, or I couldn't. So I felt that I couldn't express.
You were conditioned to that wasn't allowed.
Right.
Okay. Fair statement. I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. Okay.
No.
Okay.
Fair statement. And so there was, just as I continued to learn and I continued to be like, I'm stepping into my worth. I'm stepping into who I am. I'm using my voice. Like I stepped into a speaking course and I started to speak to like strangers, like no problem. And they started to get speaking gigs and I started to do that with so much confidence.
Amazing.
And as that continued to grow, there was still this, like in the relationship that I was in at the time, this level of like, this isn't right. Something's not right. Something's not right. And it was just this continued tug of war, because I'm like, I'm doing all this work and I feel like I'm growing.
Yeah.
And yet I feel like I don't understand this area and I don't understand what's happening. Yeah. And I mean, ultimately, I just needed to trust myself. Like, this isn't where I was meant to be. But I couldn't trust that. For some reason, I was so gung-ho on like, nope, this is it. This is where I need to be, that I pushed into that. And it wasn't until I found out that he was doing other things. It was literally this moment of freedom, because I was like, oh, like I didn't know that was happening. But at the same time, I knew something was happening that wasn't right.
Kind of goes back to that permission thing we've talked about a couple of times here and there. We can listen all day long. Mm-hmm. We can put ourselves in positions to do the thing, to be in the place. But until someone or even ourselves say, hey, it's okay, like we very rarely take action on that, no matter how well we're listening, right?
100%. And I think that's why it's so important too, to surround yourself with people who give you that permission, either whether it's giving you permission to feel, giving you permission to speak, giving you permission to emote. To be. Like, you have to surround yourself around people who give you that permission. And I think what's sad is that a lot of people feel like, I can't around some people, or I'm afraid. Like I remember when I came out with my story and I talked about it, there were so many women who came forward to me saying, I haven't told anyone about my story. Like, I've been cheated on. I've been this, but I'm so afraid to tell people. I'm so ashamed to tell people.
Sure.
And that's one of the reasons I came out with it, because I was like, we don't get to be ashamed for whatever experience that we have in our life. And if I can show up as permission for other people to observe that and to feel that and be okay with that, that's why I want to help women or men.
Yeah.
Right? Or men.
Yeah.
But that's, so I came out with my story and it was super massive, and so much feedback from so many people who've been through, similar journeys. And my whole message was, it's not the other person.
Yeah.
Because I learned a lot from that other person in terms of what I wasn't listening to and what I wasn't doing for myself and the voice I wasn't using. It was myself. Like, oh my goodness, I wasn't giving myself permission to trust. I wasn't giving myself permission to step in.
It was me the whole time.
The whole time.
Me the whole time. Yeah.
And you don't drive someone else's choices. That's their choices. But that's them. That's on them to deal with, and like, that's not you. So you get to see how you get to grow and what you weren't listening to and what you weren't trusting. And you got to forgive yourself for that as well. And when we forgive ourselves for like, I'm on the journey and I'm healing and I'm learning, and that's okay. And what the experiences that happened for me are okay.
Bringing it full circle. I love it.
Exactly.
I love it. Yeah.
And so it just became such a beautiful gift to connect to my audience and my people in such a deeper connective way than I ever had before.
Amazing. Kind of getting towards the end here. Just one other thing came to mind. Forgiveness is a quintessential component to continuing on the journey in life. When we don't forgive, interpret that how you will, we stay tethered to those things in the past. We just keep elongating the chain to that massive weighted ball. But forgiveness is finally the ability to cut that cord. But it's, in my experience, it's more difficult for us to do that with ourselves than with other people. Would you agree? And how can we actually get into a position? You've been talking about a lot of things, physically, mentally, emotionally, breathily, that's a word. But how then this final component, forgiveness of ourselves, to like fully step forward our full self? Like, how did you do it? And how would you advise somebody else to do it?
So for me, it took a lot of grace. Compassion and grace, I think, are the things that we get to have for ourselves primarily. Because how are you going to show that to anyone else unless you show it to yourself? So grace in terms of like, especially in the beginning of that time, grace for like, I don't want to work out right now. That's okay. Like, I don't want to move as much as I did.
That was me yesterday. I was the biggest waste of space, but I just like, just stop fighting it. Just give yourself permission. It's okay. Your body's telling you something.
Exactly. And listening to that and having that like compassion, like it's okay. And one of the biggest tools was writing sometimes writing with a prompt and other times just writing to get something out.
Just like a brain dump.
Exactly.
Journal sesh kind of thing. Okay.
And so, actually Christine Hassler is the one who gave me the prompt of, I forgive myself for. And whatever that is, whatever you need to write, just see where your pen goes. Like, I was never an everyday journaler. I would journal every once in a while. But when I was going through this experience of healing, that was so massive because you don't realize where your hand and your brain is actually going to go. You know, when you just allow it to kind of flow, you start to say like, I forgive myself for, and then all of a sudden you're like down this huge journey and you're like, whoa, I didn't even realize
have to do
that.
A follow-up episode just on that. I got about 3 hours. You can just brain dump that podcast. It'll be a brain dump cast for sure. But I could not agree more. So powerful.
Yeah. And that was one of the most healing things, taking baths, like actually realizing what self-care is. So that is crying. That's being angry and screaming into a pillow and being okay getting those emotions out, especially when you feel like in an instance of being betrayed, being let down, being whatever it is, like it is okay to be angry. And that's a healthy thing to feel and be able to move through, because you don't want to go yelling in like the street corner at someone. So how can I channel that into a space that's safe? And I actually went to Christine Hassler's workshop. Okay. And she had what she called an anger burn.
An anger burn.
An anger burn. So imagine 60 women going through an anger burn in a room. I know, it was intense.
I think I've seen this Lifetime movie. Is that sexist? I'm sorry. I'm being rude.
It was the most powerful thing.
I can just imagine any group of people with like, hey, we're here for an anger burn. Yo, that's got a lot of the feelings coming out.
Woo.
Wow.
That was like, I literally could feel energy going through my arms as I was doing it.
I imagine. Wow.
It was so powerful. And so for my birthday that year, I took all my ladies to this place called Rage Ground.
Oh, no way.
Rage Ground LA.
You got the best names for things. I need to go to Rage Ground and have a burn fest. That's what I do.
And yeah, you just get to like go ham on things for like an hour and break things. And I mean, that was more of a fun experience. No one was like crying or anything, but
get it out.
Yeah. But I was just like wanted to like have that experience with my women of like, it is okay to like smash things and hit things and feel powerful and get things out. And that's why boxing is so great, or lifting, or, you know, yoga's great, but do something that also stimulates that like aggressive energy in you as well.
Yeah. What I'm hearing, what I've heard this whole time is your kind of innate ability, but also your curiosity and teacher version of you to listen and to tap into the parasympathetic, to tap into the sympathetic, to tap into these realms of the physical, of the conscious, the subconscious, and just make space to see what is going to be calling back on the other side, and then sit with it, be with it, and then act accordingly. This whole concept of stimulating the rest and digest, stimulating the non-stimulus part of us is brilliant. It makes perfect sense when I hear you talk about it, but I've never actually I never had to think about it, because the fight or flight, the stress response, just the go, 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 like that's obvious. But I mean, I can turn that on. Most people can turn that on when you need to or when you want to, but to turn on all these other areas, that takes practice.
100%.
That's wild. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story and coming on here. It's been incredible getting to know you more. And I mean, your content is just, if you need some good mobility movements, if you need some stretches, some workouts, I mean, you kill it on that stuff. But I knew there was more. I knew there was more. There always is. Nobody's that good. Nobody's that passionate about just one thing when it's just the one thing. It's the realization that the one thing that I love to do makes everything else so much more obvious or so much more enjoyable. It's your own gateway drug to your fulfillment.
Yeah, for sure. And now being able to do it with a partner.
Oh yeah.
Gold.
It is. It's amazing. Life is good when you got purpose, you got passion, but when you can do that with somebody else, life is so much mo better when you got that sidekick, for sure. Mine's MIA. She was here. I don't know where my wife went. She's just gone. I didn't even get a courtesy text or anything. All right. But thank you so much again. And before we head out, the question I ask everybody is ever forward. Those two words. It's kind of got my own meaning, my philosophy, and all the things we've been talking about, these states of awareness of fitness, nutrition, mindset. That's what it means to live a life ever forward for me. What does that mean to you when you hear those two words? How do you live a life ever forward?
I think just like you said, that state of curiosity is so incredibly important. And knowing that we spend so much time, so many podcasts we listen to say you're worth listening to. Yeah. And knowing that when you come back to pointing at yourself, you're worth listening to. And when you continue to come back and point toward yourself and give yourself that opportunity to trust, to understand, to listen, that's going to keep you moving forward.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys definitely do not want to sleep on this episode. Do not sleep on her content. Pretty much mostly hanging on Instagram, right? At DocGenFit, right?
Yeah.
Check it out. Do yourself a favor. Tap into the conscious, tap into the subconscious. Do your stretches, do your mobility, and pay attention to yourself. More importantly, give yourself permission to give yourself permission.
100%.
Thank you, Jen. Appreciate it.
Thank you.